The Holler Kings, where the horror's southern fried.
Hello, it's me, Craig.
And it's me, Adam.
And we're the Holler Kings.
The Holler Kings, the number one rated Southern themed horror podcast of Middle Tennessee by two guys named Craig and Adam.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I feel like I gave enough. I feel like we can corner that market successfully.
Yeah, you zeroed in.
Yeah.
Zeroed in, yes.
So there shouldn't be any flaws in my system. That should be good. I think we're okay.
Speaking of flaws in the system, what movie are we talking about today?
We are talking about The Blazing World.
This reality is just one gradation of a whole series of planes of existence.
Hello? Mom?
Hey!
Honey!
Oh, my little girl.
Is it possible for someone to be trapped in another dimension?
The physical or the metaphysical realm?
Can someone be taken against their will?
By what?
Can they be brought back if they're trapped?
Don't be afraid. We met before. Don't you remember?
What are you?
She is imprisoned between life and death.
Let me bring her back.
She is held by 3 demons. To open the door, find the 3 and take their keys. And I warn you, they're not going to be as nice to you as I am.
The Blazing World from 2021 from filmmaker Carlson Young.
Yes. Carlson Young.
Wrote, directed, and starred in this film.
Just doing it all.
Really?
Yeah.
One woman show. Very impressive.
Yeah. Because it was, and I know this was all kind of filmed during like COVID, so it was filmed during like quarantine and all that.
To be honest, I didn't even think of that. I should have.
Yeah.
It makes sense because so many of the scenes are one-on-one and
Right.
that
It's
sort of
pretty
thing.
limited cast and all that.
Tell me about The Blazing World, Adam.
Blazing World. It's about a woman named Margaret who she's got some demons in her past and finally decides to go back to her childhood home to confront those demons.
Fair enough. It was marketed, I feel like, or at least the trailer and IMDb and whatnot kind of make us feel like this is going to be a horror film on some level.
Yeah.
But it definitely isn't. I mean, it's kind of a fantasy, kind of dreamlike quality that has some horror elements and, some imagery that's kind of horror. But
Right.
I definitely don't want to sell anyone on the idea this is a horror film.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there was definitely plenty of horror elements to it, but it's not.
Our first disagreement.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely not horror in the tradition of what you would expect.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I could if someone's like, hey, recommend me a horror movie, I wouldn't go to this one
Right.
off the bat, but
I'm biting my tongue. So this is set in Texas. This is Austin, Texas.
yeah.
And it feels very Austin-y in some scenes.
Yeah, I definitely could feel that
Yeah.
in kind of the backdrop of the scenes and in the architecture of the buildings of like her
Ooh, yeah.
childhood home and all that.
Yeah.
I could it definitely felt. The characters never really feel too southern, but the landscape around them does for sure.
That's the good point with like some of the sequences when she's in other dimensions and stuff like that. It feels very Southern Gothic too, with like, the decay of these antiquated buildings and stuff like that. It's nice touches like that. And the filmmaker, Miss Carlson Young, is from Fort Worth, Texas. So she is
Yeah.
bona fide Southerner. That's one of the reasons we're profiling this film.
Yeah. Yeah, she's the reason it got on my radar at all. Because I was a fan of hers she was Brooke in the Scream TV series. Well, yeah. That, and she was, of course, the infamous Jay Quallen. But
What's that?
Jay Quallen?
I don't know what it is.
There was you may have seen it. There was a Key and Peele skit that went kind of viral, and it's the one where Keegan Michael Key, it's a substitute teacher, and it's kind of this riff of how white people can't pronounce any names other than like John and Kevin and stuff like that. Yeah. And so he's this substitute teacher who can't pronounce white names correctly. So like she's Jacqueline, but he calls her Jay Quallen when taking attendance and all that.
Okay, let's take a roll here. Jay Quallen. Where's Jay Quallen at? No Jay Quallen here? Yeah.
Do you mean Jacqueline?
Okay, so that's how it's gonna be. Y'all wanna play? Okay, then. I've got my eye on you, Jay Quallen.
Really funny skit. But yeah, she was in that, and but yeah, from that, and then she was on Scream.
But I think when I looked up her IMDb, she was also on other sketch comedy shows. Maybe she has a little bit of a like improv background, because she was on the Kroll Show, and I feel like something else in that wheelhouse other than the Key and Peele show. But
yeah, because she was in a couple of their skits. I think it was just the ones with like the substitute teacher. I don't know. She may have done more, but I know there was 2 featuring that substitute teacher that she was in the skits with them. But yeah, that's how she came on my radar from that. And I was just looking through movies one day, and it popped up, and I was kind of, I read what it was about. I was like, oh yeah, okay, that kind of sounds interesting. And then I saw her name attached to director and star. I was like, oh. So I went and watched the trailer and all that.
And this was originally a short film.
Yes.
That was also at Sundance.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, from 2018, I think.
Have you watched that as well?
I did watch it, yeah.
How does that compare to the feature?
For the most part, I mean, you could see the kind of like, I guess you could say the sort of like bones of what she wanted to create with the movie. It's different in that it loses, there's really none of the like Southern tones that are in the movie.
It's at UCLA, right?
Yeah,
or like a college.
Yeah, you could
setting.
definitely tell it's in that kind of environment. Especially, like I said, down to like the architecture, like the home that they use is definitely like a more modern California style home. So, and like, I mean, it's just a short film. It's like 13 minutes, so it doesn't really get into the nit and grit of it. But like, instead of a sister, it's a brother, and he never died in the movie. She just kind of starts seeing this impetus of this like glowing, or this like black portal and all that. So there were definitely seeds of it that you could see to what she ends up doing with the actual movie.
Well, how did you actually feel about this
about the movie?
Yeah, give us your feelings.
It was kind of a roller coaster of emotions, because I don't know how you feel about it from what I'm getting,
from
what I'm reading.
Air it out before I get into it.
From what I'm reading, you weren't too big a fan of it, and I kind of felt that at first, but as it built along, as I kept watching the movie, I did get kind of enthralled with it. And I think coming out of it at the end, I did enjoy it. Like how we were talking, I don't know if it's one I'd recommend to just anybody really, but overall, I did like it. Because you talked about first filmmaker, you could definitely see this as a first-time filmmaker's journey of a lot of different references and pulling from other filmmakers. You got stuff like The Shining was in there, and you could tell this feels like something Del Toro would have produced or something like that.
Sure.
You see those elements and those where you could tell where she had influences from these other filmmakers. But I mean, overall, I think she did a really good job with it. Because I know from the very beginning, it's such an off-kilter movie. Nothing about this feels standard kind of like standard operating procedure for what you would think this type of movie would be. Once you kind of get that down, that you're into something a little bit off kilter, I think it's easier to digest. This reminds, I mean, they're completely different movies in the sense of style and tone and everything, but just being that kind of like off kilterness of something like The Greasy Strangler, and then this just, it doesn't feel patterned as what most standard movies would be.
That's fair. This is definitely not like a Sid Field screenwriting type of scenario where it has a structured, act 1, act 2, act 3. It's very, when I was watching it, I mean, obviously I thought of you just because it has a very dreamlike quality, and deliberately so, I think. And it reminded me of a Lynch film in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I thought that would be kind of in your wheelhouse, like a lot of the imagery and some of the lighting choices and everything made me think of, stuff like Suspiria.
Yeah, it definitely gets Argento-esque or Italian in general.
And a little bit of Mandy vibes in a few moments where I kind of felt like there was a nice thing that I felt like they did where in dialogue scenes, I guess to kind of express like distance between the characters sometimes, they would be lit completely differently. So like her, the protagonist, she's like, say, blue, and then it cuts back to the person she's talking to and they're like orange or red, like kind of going back and forth. I thought it was kind of interesting ideas and everything. But my biggest criticism is, I mean, this is a feature-length movie.
Yeah.
And like I did my due diligence. I watched this twice. I watched it twice. And so much of it is her walking with no dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just her like walking on a beach, her walking in a field, her walking down a hallway and just looking bewildered and confused. And, and God bless her. I mean, I respect it so much that she had the confidence to be like, people will want to watch me walk around silently and they'll be enthralled by it, because that's like, I mean, seriously, that's 40% of this movie is that. And sometimes it's establishing a setting and a mood, but sometimes it felt like an old horror movie where it's in the woods and the characters are lost and they have to walk around in the woods for a while to kind of give us an extra 10 minutes to make sure this is a feature-length movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And it felt that, like, I felt the strain of it sometimes.
Did you?
That it didn't feel like there were enough ideas for a feature-length movie, and they padded it with, some of this imagery. Now, the COVID stuff, I didn't even... you brought that up right now, and I wasn't thoughtful enough to even think of that stuff. So that probably affected things quite a bit with the screenwriting and how it had to be filmed and everything. So in fairness to them, I mean, there were some serious constraints and everything. But yeah, continue. That was just I'm massaging in some of my criticism. I'm trying not to go at this with knives out, just because I do really respect like a singular vision. Like I think she had a co-writer, but for the most part, this seems to be her show, and I really do respect that, like in all seriousness. So I'm trying not to just come at it too harsh or whatever. That was my pulled punch.
There were a couple scenes where I did kind of notice the pacing, but for the most part this movie didn't drag too much for me. I could see there was this, you mentioned the part on the sand dunes when she's like walking through them, like, okay, you could have cut some of this back. We didn't need all of this. So, yeah, there were a few scenes like that where it definitely could have lost a few minutes. And, I mean, yeah, you could just chalk that up to just being, like, first-time filmmaker. Overall, because I've seen plenty of first-time filmmaker stuff, I was really impressed with being so sure about her vision and how she wanted to do it. Because the easy thing would have been to structure this like so many fantasy movies we've seen before. And it didn't really feel like that, at least not many that I've seen. So to have that kind of vision and be able to execute it for, I mean, what I feel was successful. So I lost my train of thought.
No,
But yeah, go ahead.
I don't mean to make it sound like I thought it was some big train wreck.
Right, yeah, no.
By any means. I mean, I do think this is super competent and shows a lot of potential and talent, and completely would be interested in something else made by this filmmaker. So I don't mean to make it sound like it was just like I was sitting here just like, you know, punching mirrors and stuff, that I was so frustrated with it, you know. It's just sometimes I did feel it was a little over bloated, and they didn't quite have enough material to warrant the runtime.
Yeah.
But, you know, talking about her as a filmmaker, I mean, it is a testament to her skill that she's able to attract like veteran actors, because there's some pretty recognizable
Yeah, I
people
mean, you
in this
got
film.
Udo Kier in
Yeah.
here, Vanessa Shaw,
Our boy Dermot Mulroney.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
A Virginian. He's another Southerner.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's got a hell of a cast to it.
And they all, I think, do a good job with the parts they're given, and having pretty tough, almost like monologues in a lot of cases. You know, because so much of it is her reacting to antagonist. You know, kind of giving her speeches, and you know. So they're given quite a bit of heavy lifting to do in their scenes, which probably was a lot of fun for them as actors.
Yeah.
You know,
I was interested. It really, the acting kind of was. They made some interesting choices. It felt, there was parts of it where it felt, I don't know if it's to have this kick of just being otherworldly kind of. But the acting seems heightened in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And you know, it has to be deliberate, because we've seen all these actors and other stuff do it in much more subtle ways. That was one thing that kind of took me a minute to get kind of acclimated with, was just some of the acting styles that they went through.
Well, I mean, it is a little bit melodrama, and people always associate that as a negative thing, but it's not. It's just a choice of kind of heightened,
right?
You know,
I mean, you go back to like old cinema, that's pretty much all how everybody. I guess it's a theater sense that kind of carried over, and it's kind of it's gone to the wayside nowadays, because I mean, the whole point of that type of acting was so you could enunciate, people could see your expression and hear what you're saying, where nowadays you don't need it. But it's not a sense of like bad acting. It's just a heightened sense of, I don't even want to call it overacting, but I mean, yeah, like you said, more of like a melodrama type of.
I definitely think it's a choice, and it adds to the fairy tale / dreamlike quality sometimes. And I accepted that pretty quickly, actually. I noticed it too, but it never took me out of it. And in fact, it kind of drew me in a little bit.
It does.
With the acting.
It pushed me away at first, but it does end up drawing you in. Especially like the beginning scene kind of threw me off. I was like, what? Because it has this odd choice of music to it. And there is the overacting of like Vanessa Shaw, who plays Carlson Young. Margaret plays her mother in it, where she's like cooking and stuff, and she's like doing these like big hand gestures when she grabs the knife and starts cutting the carrots. And I was like, what am I watching here? So it did take a minute, and then as it kept moving along, I was like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing here. This is part of the fantasy element and kind of the nature of creating your own world, that and structuring it to be different than the reality.
Well, it also maybe is working on two different levels of, you know, all three of these characters, the parents and the protagonist, they share trauma of the main character, her twin sister drowned in a pool. And that's kind of like this like tipping point for all these characters, where it's almost like they're all stuck in that spot.
Yeah.
Even though it's many years later, it's probably 25 years later. But they're all kind of like, I feel like what's the protagonist's name?
Margaret.
Margaret is almost childlike in some ways.
Yeah.
She's almost kind of stuck at that point. And then the parents have not moved an inch. I mean, they're identical to how they were, on the day of the death. And also, I wonder, too, if it's also supposed to kind of be almost like Margaret's POV a little bit.
A little bit. Like, this is all maybe... Even could be that all this is in her head.
It's like heightened a little bit because that's how she's seeing them, because she's still seeing them almost like in a childlike way. So they're a little bit more heightened and animated. And because I feel like her friends, there's a sequence where she's at a bar just hanging out with like friends she grew up with and everything. They seem pretty grounded for the most part.
That's what that's the only part where the acting kind of seems on a more traditional basis of how you would see in movies now. There were a couple of couple characters get a little heightened, but for the most part, it kind of is almost... Now, the setting has an otherworldly sense, but the characters themselves seem to be on a more, like, grounded level, I guess. And one of those... That main guy that she's with in that scene was on... His name's John Carna. John or James, something like that, Carna. But he was in the Scream TV series with her.
Gotcha.
He played Noah, who's sort of like the Randy character.
Okay.
So.
Nice. Did you get the literary reference?
To the
title and stuff like that.
Yeah, to the book. Yeah, because this is very loosely based on the book. It's like the description of a new world called the Blazing World.
Yeah. And the writer of that is Margaret.
Yes.
Cavendish.
Yes.
So I think that was a little reference to the character name.
Yeah.
And apparently it's considered... It was written in the 17th century. 1666.
It was like 60... Yeah. I actually listened to it.
Really?
I listened to there's an audio book of it. I listened to it after watching the movie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So it's not that...
It's
just inspired by it a little bit, maybe.
Other than it being a female protagonist who's basically going to either spiritually or physically into a new world of their sort of own creation in a way. Other than that, and it's called the Blazing World. Other than that, there's really no connection.
That's what when I was reading up on it a little bit, I saw that there's a lot of like literary criticism written about it.
Yeah,
it's seen as very prolific.
Yeah, it was like some of the earliest science fiction.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah. They consider it kind of like a proto science fiction novel, and one of the first examples of a utopian,
right?
Where it shows like a future society, and that's kind of perfect and everything. So a real trailblazer. I'd never heard of it, to be honest.
I hadn't
brought it to
either.
my attention.
Yeah. I just happened to, after discovering the movie, I just looked it up and found that on YouTube you can listen to this recording of it.
It's got to be public domain many times over, right?
And the audio book is public domain. That's why you can find it on YouTube and stuff like that. So.
Well, and that's what we did. We didn't really talk about like the actual plot of this. Again, I don't think that we need to break it down, but just for a listener that maybe hasn't, dug into this yet, it is, she has this childhood trauma, the protagonist, of her sister dying at a young age, and she remembers seeing like a strange man at a portal upon the death of her sister, and that's always kind of like haunted her. And eventually she speculates that maybe her sister still exists on some dimension in another... If she can find access to this portal, she can like find her sister again. Yeah. And so it's kind of her journey through different dimensions. And
it's all just really escapism, right? Because, you get a scene, it's clear that there's some domestic abuse going on between her parents. This only light I guess she has is taken away, which is her sister, and so it's all this escapism of like she's still got to be around, and I got to find her, and there's this other world where she has to be. So,
And I mean, we keep talking about another world and fantasy and stuff like that. It's somewhat grounded though, because they never go full tilt where it's like, you know, a CGI goblin jumps
Yeah,
out or something
yeah.
like that. It's all people in pretty moderate costuming. I mean, if any, in some cases. I mean,
Some of it is in her childhood home,
Right.
That she just enters into this world and then goes into her another version of her childhood home. Yeah, it's all pretty steeped in reality as far as like this isn't like Labyrinth or anything like that.
Yeah. Although, I mean, there are touches where I couldn't help but think of Labyrinth, or certainly Pan's Labyrinth, where it feels a little skewed and a little dark, even though it's fantasy realm. And I mean, the fact that she's in kind of a dress the whole time, and she's a blonde woman, it kind of made me think of Alice in Wonderland.
I did get
moments.
instances of that too, definitely. Yeah, I definitely see. I mean, you kind of throw a dart at any kind of like fantasy type elements in the past, and you can kind of see influences there, especially like you said, Alice or Del Toro stuff. Not just Labyrinth, but yeah. Going back to the sand dunes, that scene when she goes into that little hut with the woman there is supposed to be like a demon that she's got to get the key from, because that's where this all goes. Is she ends up finally going into the blazing world. She's met by a gentleman played by Udo Kier. Amazingly, he's so great in the movie. He's so good, and he informs her that there are 4 locks, and she has to find the 4 keys, and she has to get them from these demons. So when she goes into the sand dunes and to find that demon and get the key, like that scene, I don't know, it was just it felt very horror to me. In the music, how it timed so well with what's going on screen. I don't know, it had me kind of unnerved and throughout the whole thing of it. I don't know how you felt about it.
No, I agree. They did a great job. Sometimes overwrought music bothers me, but I feel like they use the score really well, really cleverly to help kind of heighten moments and illustrate, you know, what characters are feeling and everything. Again, because it's kind of fantasy realm, I feel like it worked in its favor. It didn't take me out of it.
Yeah, there would just be these scenes, like anytime the demon character, like I said, it's just a person. It's her mom, and with like a mask on. But anytime like she like darts her eyes a certain way, there'd be like these stings of music. I don't know. It just felt very off kilter throughout it. And
the set design in that scene was really cool too, because it was all about decay and rot and everything. And there's a lot of like little elements that are pretty gruesome. You know, just natural elements.
Yeah.
You know?
That, I mean, really, I thought that's another, like the set design of this movie is pretty amazing, given that this couldn't have been a huge budget movie. That they stretched that budget so as far as they did with because everything, again, it almost has a otherworldly element to it. I mean, really, it does. All the set designs, down to her apartment at the beginning, to like the bar they go to called the Woods, and to her childhood home. It all has. It's so meticulously designed that it is otherworldly in itself, because it feels so heightened.
It's weird how, like, you know, the whole like Kismet thing works, because it's just crazy right now how multiverse stuff is so huge. You know, like multiple realities and multiverse. I mean, it's just everywhere right now. It's kind of interesting seeing it go all the way to, you know, this indie, you know, low budget movie, all the way up to like Disney productions and everything right now. It's just having its moment right now. It's, you know, pretty wild.
And maybe it was the benefit of, I don't want to say the benefit, but maybe the reason of it being during COVID, it was easier to get people to come in and shoot this movie because they're not working. They're like, yeah, I want to. Not only do I want to make some money, even if it's a little bit, I want to get these creative juices flowing.
Sure.
So, I mean, that could have benefited the movie in some way to get some really great people on set to do like the designs and all that. What I was impressed with was just not the story, but what she fleshed out around it. Any of the scenes that should be kind of like horror, I thought where she did really well. Like the other scene when she goes to the demon with her, that's her played by her dad. Again, just the way he moved and the sound design with it as he's like scratching at his face and all this. It triggered in me something. I don't know, like it just had this unnerving quality about it where I didn't see in those instances where it was going to go next, what the characters were going to do.
I mean, I think that's a really fair rebuttal to kind of emphasize that it's more about the visuals and kind of a mood.
Oh yeah,
than
that's
it
what
is
I was.
about,
Yeah,
like actual, story and dialogue. It's
Right.
more of like a journey than it is, telling like any kind of like grounded story that's relying on dialogue and character development and stuff like that. It's a little bit different.
What did you think of those horror elements? Did you think they were? Because I thought they were. I thought they were on par.
No, I totally
Or
agree.
is on par? Is that? I mean, that's
Up to par, maybe.
maybe.
I
I don't know. Above par. I thought they were like really well structured and well done to the point that, as an avid horror fan for as long as I've been, they kind of threw me off. I was really impressed with them.
I demand your rating.
Okay, let's rate it.
Go for it.
Oh, I will give it a.
Hold on. Do you want me to go first? Because I'll probably lowball it. You might want to pump it up a
Okay,
little bit.
you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
What do you rate The Blazing World?
Now, after our discussion, this is getting kicked up a little bit.
Okay.
So I want to emphasize that because had we not talked about this and had you not influenced me, this would be getting a much lower rating. Okay. So your points hit home and you're very correct. I'm going to give this a C+.
Okay.
So better than average, showing a lot of potential for something I would be genuinely interested in going forward. But maybe she's in the mode of, I forgot the director name of Mandy.
I know it, but I can't pronounce it.
Right.
Very easily.
That might be why I'm avoiding it. But
yeah.
she might be in the mode of she wants to make dreamlike, Lynchian.
Now, were you a big fan of Mandy?
Not really. No.
See, I wasn't either. That's why I was wondering. Because Mandy was one. I mean, we're not going to sit here and review Mandy, but that was one where I watched and I was just like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was another great example of an overbloated. It was basically like, I feel like this is stronger than Mandy in a lot of ways, but Mandy
It was shorter, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, Mandy was basically a music video. I mean, it was it was visuals set to really cool music and cool visuals.
Looked great,
yeah,
but man.
But there were just moments where it was just like, or extended sequences where it just felt so masturbatory. Yes, thank you.
I'm very good at that word.
You pulled it right out. Whereas this felt very, Blazing World felt very zeroed in. And even though I do feel like it was overbloated sometimes, it still felt like focused. It didn't feel like it was literally just trying to make a music video. There was a little bit more intent for me. But obviously Mandy was a phenomenon.
I mean, people seem to love it.
And
so who am I to say? But yeah, it was one that just, it didn't click with me.
Yeah. C+ for The Blazing World.
Boom, there it is. You know what? You rated it better than I thought you were going to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You made some good points. And I realize, again, it's more like what I wanted versus what they gave us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's not fair to them that
but it's like
I was kind of wanting a different movie, you know?
It's like we're saying with Mandy. Mandy wasn't what I wanted it to be, but that didn't make it bad.
Right.
I mean, obviously, people seem to love it. But it wasn't what I wanted it to be. So... Yeah, I totally get that. I'll give it a even B.
Yum.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you that it could have lost some of the fat in some parts. Not a crazy amount, maybe like 5 minutes, maybe pushing it up to 10 if you really want to really just get it down to the nit and gritty. I think it could have definitely lost some of those elements, but overall, and once you get past those caveats of this is all fantasy, even from the get-go, and it's heightened, it's not going to be what you expect it to be as far as like the acting and all that. I really got into it, and I thought this was about to be a first-time filmmaker. I thought she was very self-assured and knew, like you were saying, she pinpointed, she knew her vision and what she wanted to do with it. I was really impressed with all that. And I really did, even though there were a couple of parts where it lagged, I never really felt bored during it. Mm-hmm. It played all the way through, and I was like, man, it felt pretty quick. Even though there were a couple of parts where I was like, okay, that's lagging a little bit. That could probably go. But overall, I thought it moved really well. And they didn't do, I was really worried. There's a point where she is in the bathtub, she's got a razor and all this, and then there's a point where it cuts that shows Udo Kier holding her underwater. I was really worried it was going to get to the end and like she was dead the whole time. And they didn't do that, thankfully. Spoiler alert. So if you're watching it and you're like, oh, fuck. No, they don't do that. Yeah. So I was really worried about that. I was like, God, if she ends up being dead the whole time, I'm going to punch my TV. But they didn't. So, yeah. So, yeah, I'd give it an even B.
Giving it a B- from the Holler Kings.
There it is.
The Holler Kings say, well, in Adam's case, check it out. I don't. I
would say this. If you love Italian cinema and you love movies like Mandy, check it out.
I'm going to say, just take our word for it, that this is an up-and-coming filmmaker to look out for. You don't have to watch the movie, though. Maybe you could just watch the trailer and you'll be fine. But Adam says watch it. And
Craig says it's shit.
We like to end every episode of the Holler Kings with a segment we call Holler at Your Boys.
Holler back, y'all.
This is where open topic. We can talk about whatever we want.
What would you like to talk about today,
well, I thought
Craig?
We're talking about a film that is based in fantasy and the paranormal. Mm-hmm. And I thought, let's talk about a paranormal experience we've had.
Yes.
Let's share with our listeners.
Let's do that. Sorry.
I have a recent paranormal experience.
Do you really?
Yes.
Something recent?
This is one that was instantly debunked by my wife, but I saw something.
Oh, shit.
This is, I've had a night job that I recently quit, or ended, but I had an evening job.
Because of ghosts?
Yes. It was. I had a night job. I was very late night at a building. This is going to show my hand here, show what I was doing. I was by the dumpster.
Oh, shit.
And I glanced over, and it's like a small field, and there's another building. Mm-hmm. And I saw a figure walking up the street towards the building. Uh-huh. And this was about 1:30 in the morning. And it was just like a random figure, walking up. And I was like, well, that's weird. I've never seen someone out here this late, across the way over there. And it was probably about 20 feet, maybe 30 feet. So not like a really far,
Not like 150 feet away where you're like,
right.
That something?
It was definitely a person, 100%. And it was under a street light, like one of those blue street lights. So the figure was a man, pretty large guy, and he was shaved head. That's all I really know, because I only saw them from behind or whatever. But anyway, I just kind of noted it. I got into my truck to leave. This is like seconds or whatever, right? And when I backed my truck up with the headlights on, no one was there. And it was like 10 seconds. So the person should have still been walking up that pathway towards that building.
Yeah.
But they weren't there anymore. That's what stuck in my head is like,
Right.
That's really weird. Like, what the hell happened, you know? And when I told my wife, she was immediately like, they probably just ran to the woods. They probably realized someone was there and they got freaked out and they ran. And I'm like, why? Why would someone be upset that I was there? I mean, they weren't doing anything wrong. They were just walking.
How far off was the woods from where
they would have had to sprint?
Yeah.
It's possible, but they would have had to go, oh shit, there's someone there. I don't want to be seen. I'm sprinting as fast as possible into the woods.
Yeah.
Maybe. And even then, I think I would have caught them like the tail end, like, huh? Like, you know, just saw them running in. So it was a really weird sighting. And to me, it was one of those things I was kind of excited because I'm very skeptical and I don't believe in anything paranormal at all. Outside of aliens, and only that and like the scientific, there's probably an alien somewhere in the universe. Like I don't believe in anything paranormal. So I was like jazzed. Like I was like, holy crap, I saw something weird. This is something I can't easily explain. And I was so excited. And yeah, my wife was just like, Like I showed her, like I told her the story, she kind of downplayed it. And I took pictures as reference. Like this is the pathway. These are the woods. And she was like, he could have made it. You know, I was like, no, he couldn't. Like this guy would have had to be a world-class athlete to sprint as soon as he saw me. And then also, why would he? Like that's my biggest question. Is like, why would someone
take
feel?
off?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with someone. There are parks nearby this building I was working at, so I mean, it's not out of the question that someone might be walking in the park real late night. I mean, if they just felt so inclined. So it's not like, I mean, and some rando in a truck isn't like, well, I mean, what am I going to do if they were in the wrong for being there?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I was chilled to the core. I've woken up late at night thinking of that man walking down that path.
Keeps you up.
Yeah.
Keeps you up at night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you said that you don't really believe in that stuff, and this was something recent. So had you ever had anything in the past at all?
No. And I've even, back when I did corrections for the state, I had to do like an academy. And supposedly the academy, it used to be a school for boys, and it was haunted. Supposedly they had all these stories, and I stayed there for like 6 weeks and never had one single, like, everyone I worked with was like, oh my God, the sink came on, or I heard somebody walking down the, you know, like they had all these little stories, and, you know, I never saw anything or heard anything. And the closest thing, and this might be a little bit of a tease, is as a really young kid being scared of the Bell Witch, like believing that the Bell Witch was a real thing and something that could really happen, but I never had any actual experiences with the Bell Witch. But that was definitely the only time that I felt like, you know, there was potential for something occult / supernatural to happen here, you know?
Yeah.
How about you? You kind of believe in some stuff? Or?
No, not really. Not at all.
I don't either. Yeah. It just doesn't. I don't think anyone's dumb or silly for believing in it. I just don't have that personality.
I always just like to reference myself as a hopeful skeptic. Like, I really want it to all be true, but I mean, I just don't really. I don't know. Like, there have been. You know, I had this one distinct memory of, because, you know, you always see something out of your peripheral, you know, like, oh, what was that?
Right.
But I have one distinct memory of being, like, in my home, in the bathroom, your childhood home. Okay. Yeah. I had been, like, 10, 11, I guess, like, looking in the mirror and seeing something in my peripheral, but it wasn't just, like, some, like, swoosh of, like, just something black. It seemed like a fully formed figure walked past me. Like, I went out of the hallway, I was like, oh, is Dad home or something? But, like, nobody was there, and there was nobody around. I mean, I still can't I just kind of explain it off as it just had to have been something, just like how you think you see something, but there's nothing there. But even, it's the only one, we see stuff like that all the time out of peripheral, but I don't really remember them. It's the only one I ever remember, because it seems so much like a human figure walking past, You know, like, because bathroom's in the middle, sort of where the hallway would be, so they had enough room to walk past into the rest of the hallway. I really can't explain it other than it was just my imagination or something, but it's always stuck with me as being something there. But ultimately, I always just come back, it was just my imagination. It was nothing.
I mean, and there's been plenty of times where I've been freaked out by something or something scared me or whatever. So I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm just like some super brave guy that never, gets freaked out. I'll never forget when I saw the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, yeah.
As a teenager, I saw it and it really disturbed me and affected me. I thought it was really great. And I came home from the theater and my parents, we lived in a very rural area surrounded by woods. And I had to take the trash out. And I remember distinctly taking the trash, sprinting to the trash can, slamming it in, and just like running it. You know what I mean? Like I sprinted back and forth because I was scared to be out close to the woods after seeing the Blair Witch Project. You know what I mean? So I definitely have my moments of like, I guess my heart kind of thinks, oh, something could be reol. You know what I mean? Like there's something emotionally going on.
Yeah, there's always those points where you're just being, I guess, irrational in a sense. Because I mean, it's kind of fascinating how movies can do that. Because how many times had you been in those woods, been around those woods, and watching a movie like that? All of a sudden, that irrational fear comes in and goes, all these woods I've been around my whole life are suddenly terrifying.
It's suddenly inhabited by
this
a fictional witch
that's not real and that was never there before. So it's kind of interesting how that works. And I've had stuff like that happen where, like, I remember, one time just being in the house by myself and then all of a sudden hear like a loud bang like coming from the back, and then you go walking through. You can't explain what it was, or didn't see anything on the floor like it fell or anything, but just having something unexplainable, like the TV come on. I remember the TV cutting on a couple times by itself. Nobody had the remote, and it just coming on. Or I remember one time like the volume cranked up on it, and nobody had the remote. But I mean, now it's chalk it up to like a faulty TV.
Sure,
but,
right.
But in the moment, it's kind of like, what the fuck just happened? Like how did that happen? So there are definitely stuff like that.
Was there anything as a kid that you were scared of supernaturally, or were you pretty solid with all that stuff?
No, like as far as like your instance with like Blair Witch and stuff.
I mean, or just even younger,
No, I can't think of. I mean, I can't think of anything too specific as far as like you said, being around from here. Like the Bell Witch was always notorious, and being kind of like freaked out by that.
And as a kid, everyone had a story. It seemed like somebody.
Oh,
had,
you see the scar I got? That was from the Bell Witch.
I literally heard that one.
Yeah. Oh, I did too. Yeah. Everybody. Hell, I probably told it to some people. It was like, oh, you see, I got this.
We gotta, at some point, we are gonna, just because this is Southern horror, we're gonna do a deep dive into the Bell Witch. So definitely have that on your radar. And if you want to reach out to us about any personal Bell Witch stories, we are very, very open to hearing them. So please reach out to us on our social media and in our email, whatnot. That's thehollerkings@gmail.com and @thehollerkings on Instagram and Twitter. So give us your Bell Witch stories.
Yeah, that'd actually be awesome. Yeah. That'd be really cool.
I think the loose plan, just to tease it out, anyone that's listening this deep into the podcast, is maybe do Halloween time. We might do a series of Bell Witch films / Bell Witch discussions. So we're gonna bone up for it here when it gets a little closer.
Yeah, that'll be really cool.
It'll be pretty epic. So on the horizon. Another thing that scared me as a kid.
What's that?
Is Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh my God.
Unsolved Mysteries scared the shit out of me because it was presented as an actual news show. Mm-hmm. That's how they presented it, even though an adult would watch it and go, oh, this is kind of tongue in cheek and they're being a little silly. But
it was terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, they had paranormal stuff mixed in with like missing persons. Mm-hmm. So missing persons obviously is real, but then they'll have this hotel is haunted and there's like a deformed bartender that, people witness. And
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff as a kid, when I watched it, it would disturb me, and I would be scared to walk through my house or go into the kitchen because I'd be absolutely convinced that there would be some weird ghost like spinning a glass or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I did have my moments.
Oh, that was definitely. I mean, I would watch the show and be freaked out, but I couldn't be around for the theme song. Like, it terrified me.
I think there's a whole generation of people that feel that way.
Yeah.
For sure.
I had a couple like that. I remember the X-Files. I didn't even watch X-Files, the show, but the theme song. With all the images always freaked me out. And then the other one was Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember I would like stay up late on Saturdays. I'm pretty sure it was I'd watch Mad TV. And then right after it went off, Tales from the Crypt would come on. Mm-hmm. And as soon as that theme song kicked in, I'm like, oh, I gotta change it.
Tales from the Crypt is so weird because I remember watching that show and being so disturbed by it as a young person, as a kid. And now I watch it as an adult and I realize, oh, this was all like purposefully funny. It was like EC Comics, like kind of silly and like heightened, and you're never really supposed to be truly disturbed by it. It's more just like fun and over the top and everything. So it's really strange watching it as an adult versus when you were a kid and you took it all seriously. I mean, there was never
it was stark.
Yeah.
Just like horror.
Yeah.
Horror. It was just horrifying.
But now I watch it as an adult and I really enjoy it. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Really well made.
It's kind of funny how I don't know what it is about getting older that you're just like, what? How did that scare me?
Well, I mean, I think Friday the 13th is a great example of that too.
Yeah.
Where as a kid, I mean, I took that all 100% seriously. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, like again, living in the woods, I just kind of pictured Jason on the peripheral being able to pop out anytime. And now as an adult, I'm like, these are hysterical, and they meant them to be. Like, there's no way that these people didn't know they were making like fun, kind of silly movies. There's just like a switch almost. You kind of lose that magic at a certain point. When you're a kid, you just believe everything, and something kind of nice about it. But also, I mean, it'd be kind of pathetic if you still felt that way when you're like 30.
Yeah, I remember being like terrified of Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare.
Right.
And you watch it now, and you're like, did I have a head injury? Like, why did this scare me?
I remember
he's literally flying on a broom like the Wicked Witch of the
Looney
fucking
Tunes.
West.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
He literally pulls out like what is it? When he's falling and he like drags out.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what he
It's
pulls
like
out, like a bullseye or something.
It's something like that.
Yeah, for him to
it's very
hit.
cartoony. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't understand how I was ever terrified by that. Terrified the shit out of me. So, yeah.
Well, I remember I saw that movie in the theater and I felt so adult. Like, even I think I was like, 11 or something.
Yeah.
But I felt like I'm seeing this full-fledged adult movie in the theater. This is amazing, but you look back on it and it's like, yeah, obviously my parents felt totally comfortable me seeing that because it was just, I mean, at that point, Freddy Krueger had like dolls and, it was a Halloween costume staple.
He had a hotline, everything.
Oh, yeah.
Once again, foolish friends, Freddy Krueger is on your phone. Dial this number now. I've got some tales to tell. Freddy's favorite bedtime stories. Dead time stories. All brand new, straight from my boiler room to your home. It's Freddy Krueger on your phone. So dial this number now if you dare. Tell him Freddy sent you.
$2 the first minute, 45 cents each additional minute. Children, get your parents' permission before you dial.
Yeah, everything had a hotline, though. I mean, it was pretty out there, but
except for Jason, that'd be a weird hotline. Just complete silence.
Yeah, maybe you could hear what he was doing, and that would make it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be interesting.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Like audio play style almost. except just someone screaming as they're being murdered.
Oh, maybe they
Jason.
could get really sophisticated and they could almost like play back audio from where you are.
Oh.
And it makes it seem like, hold on, what? Is that coming from their end? You know, and you think he's like getting closer. I don't know.
That'd be awesome.
We should have been around back then. We could have been idea men.
Yep.
That was our discussion of paranormal incidents.
Yeah.
/ things that scared us as children. I hope you enjoyed. Hey, did anything scare you as a child?
Let us know.
Comment on our YouTube channel down below, or reach out to us on social media. I discussed earlier how you could do that.
Yeah, you should remember it. So, we're not going to hold your hand on all this.
It's at the Holler Kings. And the Holler Kings at gmail.com. Reach out.
Please. We're so lonely.
On that note, thank you for joining us. And Adam, thank you for participating.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Until next time.
Holler back, y'all.